Hi, I'm Andy with Spike Motorsports. Today we're going to be working on a 2006 Range Rover. It is the 4.2 V8 supercharged model Jaguar motor. And today we're going to be swapping out the mass airflow sensor and the PCV valve. These are parts that can wear out over time, and it doesn't hurt to replace them if you start having issues with rough idle, surging, especially at idle, and sometimes surging when you're driving at lower speeds where your RPMs are not quite so high. It's a pretty straightforward job. It's something you can do in your garage or driveway, and we'll take you through it step by step. Let's get started. Now, these Range Rovers have a nice feature. Some of you may remember that the Jeep Wranglers, the hoods will fold all the way back. These have pretty decent clearance if you're working out toward the front of the motor. In this particular case, I'd like to have a little bit more room, especially so we can give you a decent angle on what we're doing here. And it's really nice when you do need to get further back into the engine bay to work on something. They've designed into this feature to allow you to be able to roll the hood all the way vertical, and it's got some points that will lock into place and keep it upright for you. What we'll do here, bring in a little bit closer. So if you look down here at the bottom of the strut, you'll see a pin, a little notch right here in the center. What you can do is take a flathead screwdriver, go in there, you bring that out, you bring this pin out, and what it will do is allow it to release. Now, in our case, we want to go ahead and release the top pin because that will allow this strut to go ahead and lay down over here rather than this be up. And then when you're trying to put it back, it's hanging, it's on each side there, scratching up this area, so we don't want that. Be ready to support the hood here because once you have one off, it's going to want to come down. I mean, these are pretty stout hoods. They've got some weight to them, so it's going to want to come down. So just be ready for that. So in this particular case, I've already gone ahead and prepared these. So you lift it up, give it a little wiggle, and then simply lay it down. Then you can go ahead and bring your hood up. You'll see there's a pin right back here with a metal flap that'll rotate. You go ahead and bring that out, bring it back full, or bring it toward the rear of the vehicle and set it so it'll go over that pin. Once you bring this up, it will allow that pin to lock into place. Now your hood's up. Okay, now that the hood's back up out of the way, we've got room to work in here. Now, if you're like me, you can't leave anything alone and you've got to tweak things here and there. In this particular case, this has a cold air intake that's been added. If yours differs, it's not a big deal. I can still show you exactly where yours would sit. In the case of the factory setup, you'd have the plastic hose running to about here. This would not be in place. And then you'd have the top of your air box sitting here, obviously recessed. And your mass airflow sensor is still going to be sitting in about the same spot. So in the case of the factory, you're going to need a T20 Torx bit. In my case here, I'm going to be using a Phillips head. So we're going to go ahead and run these out. And that allows us to be able to remove this mass airflow sensor. Now when you're ready to remove this, all you do is squeeze the clip on the connector. It'll go ahead and come out. And then give it a little wiggle, and it should pop right up out of there. Now, these typically won't show much wear, anything that's real obvious. You might check your O-ring, make sure it looks okay if you're planning to clean it. You can clean these, and it can get a little more life out of them if you just want to make them last a little longer. There are some great videos out there to show you how to do that. In this particular case, I think this one's about toast, so we're going to go ahead and replace it. So you take your new mass airflow sensor, check to see that the O-ring looks good. Make sure there's no dust or debris around the inside of the hole here for it. And when you set this into place, just make sure that your O-ring doesn't get pinched. You just set it down in there, and it should feel nice and snug. Go ahead and put your screws back in. Now, I highly recommend the use of a manual screwdriver, not a drill, because you run the risk of stripping out the holes, especially in the original plastic housing. So, you don't need them super tight, just, good and snug. Go ahead and take your connector, clip it back on, you'll feel a nice solid click, and Job done. Now we're going to go ahead and move to the PCV valve. It's a little bit more in depth, but still very easy job. Now, kind of to expound a little bit on why you'd want to clean these instead of, say, just outright replacing them. If you have an air filter that needs an oil covering, say a K&N, any other type of performance air filter, like mine does as well, you want to have a little bit of coating of oil. That can get on your mass airflow sensor, and it can make it read wrong, make it run too rich, throw codes. That'd be one reason you'd want to do that. Now mine, I know was pretty well done for, so it needed replaced, but that is one example why you'd want to go ahead and replace that. Now, in the case of the plastic cover of the motor, we're going to have to remove this to be able to gain access to the PCV valve, which sits right down in here. Don't let these intimidate you. They're very simple to take off. Most vehicles nowadays do have them, and they can be intimidating if you're sure you don't want to break anything. But you can always check online. There's a plethora of information out there for these type, or for just about any type of vehicle, to be able to get these off. So in our case, we've got 4 10mm bolts. 2 are up front here. There's 2 more hidden in the back underneath this. Land Rover's made it real simple to go ahead and remove that. Obviously, you don't want to have to do that, but if you have one of these vehicles, they're going to make it work for it a little bit. But at any rate, to get this piece off, it slides right out. You're going to need a 13mm socket. It does help if you have the universal joint on the end of it. You don't have to have it. You can run it straight through here on an extension, or just use a box end wrench, whatever you prefer. And you want to make sure you hang on to the nuts that go in these, because if they fall down into the engine bay, you can end up looking for hours. It's kind of a black hole down in there. So our next job here is to go ahead and pull out the air filter housing, or the air intake housing for the air conditioning system. So just grab right here, give it a little tug, and it slides right out. All right, so we're ready to go ahead and tackle the engine cover here. Take our 10mm socket. Okay, now once you've removed all 4 of your 10mm bolts, the next thing you want to do is remove your oil cap. That will allow you to be able to go ahead and slide this off. Just make sure there's no dirt or anything, no excessive buildup right there, because you don't want that going into your motor. So give it a little turn. Go ahead and set that up out of the way, and just lift it straight up and come right out. Now, once you take your engine cover off, it's a good idea to go ahead and put your oil cap back in place, because if you don't, you run the risk of getting dirt and debris in there. Okay, so now we've got access to our PCV valve. If you move these wire looms over, you'll see 2 screws that hold this in place, sitting right down in here. Those are T25 Torx screws. You can go ahead and take them out. All right, so once your screws are removed, you can go ahead and lift up, pull this straight up and out, and it should come out pretty easy. On each side of this, there's a squeeze clip on this hose. Squeeze it, give it a little twist, and it'll come right out. So you'll take your new PCV valve, and remember the alignment is this hose, this arrow forward, and this is the orientation of the vehicle here currently. This is the front. So we can go ahead and bring that down here. Probably a good idea to go ahead and hook that hose up. So make sure that hose snaps into place. Go ahead and slide it into the hole in the valve cover. And something important to remember, if it's taking a lot of work to put this into place, you may want to take it back out, check it over real good, make sure that that O-ring is not getting pinched in there. If it's getting pinched, it's not going to create a good seal, and you may have check engine lights, you may have other issues you're running into. So, better be safe than sorry since you're in here anyway. Alright, so again, just like with the mass airflow sensor, don't over tighten, because you run the risk of stripping out that plastic. Okay, so back in place, looking good. We can go ahead and put our cover back on the motor. Go ahead and take the oil cap back off, set it up out of the way. Take your engine cover and go ahead and lay it back down into place. All right, we'll get our 10mm nuts, set those back into place as well. Okay, so as you're tightening these, just keep in mind, make sure you're not over tightening them, because once again, the top of this bolt here is the same as where it goes into the motor, and it's very easy to snap them off, if not here, down low, and then you won't have anything to support this or keep it in place. Some people like to get rid of them. I like vehicles mostly original. Obviously I do some upgrades, but I didn't want to just get rid of this. Thought it was kind of a nice feature, so went ahead and kept it. Go ahead and put your oil cap back into place. Make sure you remember to do that, because if you don't, you're going to have a mess in here when you go to take off. Okay, now we can go ahead and put our air assembly back into place here. And once you get it lined up, come down, just check. And as you're putting this in, just make sure that the clips that are up on top of this aren't getting pinched underneath, because you can snap them off, especially the older ones. This vehicle here is 11 years old. It's aged gracefully, but there are some parts that are, getting brittle in their old age. So why break it if you don't need to? Go ahead and put your 13mm nuts back on. Also, you can access your cabin air filter while you're up here. I'll show you how to do that in another video. So, get that set into place, everything good to go. And now we can go ahead and bring our hood back down. So, just like before, lift up a little bit. You'll get a little bit of room to move on that pin. It holds that in place. Bring it back up and out of the way so it's unhooked. Let it down gently, because now you've only got one side. You do want to hook both sides up when you're starting this job. But like we said before, this is a lot of weight. So take your hood up, undo the pin, bring it down. Okay, now you have the weight of the hood. Go ahead and bring it down. Pop that back into place. That will go ahead and clip. Keep supporting the hood while you work your way around to the other side. And just a reminder that if you do let it go, it's going to drop. So go ahead, work that into place. Push your pin in. There we are. We're secured. Hood's good to go. So there you go. Everything's back into place. Make sure that when you do close your hood, you've got all your tools and everything out, all your old parts. Last thing you want to do is shut your hood on them and end up having some pretty nasty dents that you're going to have taken care of later on. So with this, you're going to see improved fuel mileage, better starting, and probably a little bit more power while you're at it. So very easy job. Again, don't be intimidated. These are all jobs you can do in your garage or out in your driveway. So I hope you found this informative and helpful, and we'll be putting some more videos up here soon. Thanks again for watching.